Bitter and absolute. The Count pulled at the fingers of the thick leather glove, loosening the gauntlet, allowing him to pull it free. His opponent bowed deeply and retreated. Orbin was a good instructor, not least because he always understood when the lesson was over. The glove finally came free, and he tossed it in the direction of the table as it slipped off his hand. It was a poor throw, skittering over the surface of the smooth wood and ending up on the floor behind. One of the slaves moved gracefully to return it to its rightful place. "What has the council said?" he demanded, once Orbin had left the room. His cousin strolled over, the proclamation in hand. "A declaration of strict neutrality, my lord. We will keep no slaves, as agreed with the Catanæans, but our serfs will remain at their appointed posts. The rest of it's pretty much as you'd expect. The council will not sign either pact." The Count snorted and shook his head. "Serf or slave?" he said aloud. "What difference does it make?" He gestured curtly at the attending serf to fetch him an ale to illustrate his point. "I believe it's a religious thing, my lord. Their gods permit all manner of vile debauchery, but they won't permit them to keep slaves." Count Yetiard stared at the serf, returning with the flagon in his hand and 2 tankards. "Well, that's strange, because I don't recall them giving 2 shits about it when their senate invited us to come over the border and round up all the Duke's escaped slaves." He tried to remember when that had been. Was it 4 years ago? Maybe 5? He looked again at the fellow standing there holding the ale. He was pretty sure this fellow was one of the ones that had run off, one of the lucky ones they dragged back in chains. The others, that Araz woman in particular, they were not so lucky. They were pretty outraged when the previous ambassador hired some of the Duke's orcs to fight the Grendel for them, his colleague said, reminding him of how badly that had gone. "Were they?" He laughed and spun on his heel to face his cousin. "Or was that just an excuse to get out of paying us because there were no Grendel to fight?" Overview. The Iron Confederacy is a large, powerful nation that considers itself the equal of the Empire. Relations with the Iron Confederacy remain civil but strained due to religious and cultural differences. Each season, the civil service prepares a summary of the Empire's relationship with foreign nations, based on communications received from their ambassador, along with any useful intelligence gathered from other sources. While the Senate and the other houses of imperial power may respond to these offers, it is important to note that it is the appropriate ambassador that the foreign power will expect to hear from. Their communication with the foreign power is the primary element that will determine the tenor of any response. The Iron Confederacy sees itself as a potential rival to the Empire, a powerful nation that matches its northern neighbours in size and strength. It's hard to prove or disprove their claims, unlikely as they seem. Despite centuries of grudging trade and even the occasional war, imperial scholars know little about the southwestern nation. The dukes of the Iron Confederacy are prickly, responding explosively to perceived slights. Their strange beliefs, especially in the patronage of so-called powerful gods, make it all too easy for them to take offence. They despise both the conclave and the synod, contending that imperial magicians and priests are pawns of Dumon the liar. On the other hand, they appear to respect the military council and the throne, but very much as worthy rivals rather than allies. The Sorani ambassador to the Empire is Baroness Catherine Lavas of Miora, who operates from the Torlavas in Chabret, a territory unknown to imperial citizens that apparently lies to the west of Veroin. A noble Naga, she replaced the significantly more dogmatic Janan di Hibanat, a high priestess of the Sorani god Evra the Smith, Maiden of the Forge. She's already indicated that she is very much more pragmatic than her predecessor, and more interested in compromise. She still reports to the Dukes of the Iron Confederacy, however, and so her apparent goodwill toward the Empire cannot be relied upon. For the last year, Tethros Izuri Irego of the Brass Coast has been ambassador to the Iron Confederacy. The title is to be appointed by the Imperial Senate during the winter solstice, but Ambassador Tethros continues to serve until the Senate reach a decision on whether they will continue in the role or be replaced. Treaties and trade. At present, the Iron Confederacy have made no moves to embrace the Freedom Accords or the Liberty Pact. Civil servants expect the Iron Confederacy to continue to play the Liberty Pact and Freedom Accord off against each other. Imperial efforts to encourage the Serrani to give up slavery have been met with limited success, seeing Serrani slaves granted the same rights as the serf class. Serfs enjoy some limited legal protections that slaves do not, but they are still bound to where they live and work and constrained by the will of whoever owns the land that they work. For the last year, the Iron Confederacy has been courted by the so-called Freedom Accord, the alliance sponsored by the Assaveans and the Yarmish and formed in opposition to the Liberty Pact. The Empire has endeavoured to persuade the Serrani to choose a different path, seeing the Senate ratify a treaty granting free trade status to the Iron Confederacy and making it a crime to sell or export narcotics to Serrani lands. As confirmed at the equinox, these provisions are intended to last for 3 years, although repealing them at that time would still require action by the Senate. At the moment, the sale of anything vaguely narcotic to Serrani citizens is illegal. Liao, of course, is already illegal to sell in the Iron Confederacy via ports or via the Serrani imperial border. Anyone who has concerns about whether a trade or not is legal would do well to consult the magistracy. The decision has seen an increase in Serrani trade, mostly through the Brass Coast. Even with Feroz now largely back in imperial hands, Serrani caravans prefer to trade via Segura. The unnatural marshes that now spread across southern Madruga worry and frighten the merchants of the Iron Confederacy, who have already christened it Dumont's Sump and spread tales that it's full of infernal forces. A third way. The Serrani refuse to pick a side between the Liberty Pact and the Freedom Accord. Since the formation of the Liberty Pact and the opposing Freedom Accord, many nations have been pushed to take a side. The Serrani have not been exempt from this, having technically abolished slavery and elevated their land slaves to the same status as their serfs. No imperial citizen would call a serf free, but the gesture was sufficient for the imperial Senate to lift trading restrictions. Since then, it seems that the dukes walk a fine line between both global power blocks, neither alienating nor aligning with either side. This has not been a passive process, as Serrani have shamelessly sought concessions from the Empire in order to keep them from the arms of the Assaveans, who are apparently inclined to be generous in their attempts to undermine the Empire's influence. The Senate walked a fine line of its own, agreeing to some demands but not others. The situation has gone back and forth for some time, until at last the rulers of the Iron Confederacy have decided to take a firm stance in favour of neutrality. The Ducal Council have chosen the path of self-interest. In a statement delivered to the foreign embassies on their soil, they state that they will happily be friends to any nation who will be friendly to them. The generosity of their foreign friends is laudable, but all who are willing to trade and obey the laws of the Iron Confederacy may dock in their harbours, and all those who are willing to pay may deal openly with those who are willing to traffic with them. There is some further politically flirtatious language holding a door open to a stronger stance in the future, but this seems to be fishing for further concessions. The message is clear. Anyone who wants to work with the Iron Confederacy will do so on an issue-by-issue basis. It seems that the conflict between freedom and liberty has ended in a draw, then. Neither side has claimed an ally, neither side has technically lost one. The main winners seem to have been the Serrani themselves, a fact that will surely not have escaped them. Yet it's true that nobody has truly won the hearts of the Council of Dukes. Imperial observers have seen a small trickle of Sarkophan vessels turning into a consistent presence on the waterfront at Roback. It doesn't take a genius to recall that the Sarkophan Delves, the world's only non-aligned great power, are always on the lookout for the best deal. While this round may be over, like all matters of diplomacy, the game is never truly finished. A broken crown, Arbonne. The singing Riqueza is haunted by several ghosts. Only Mero will be able to take part in this encounter. It is a combat unlikely encounter. The Golden Fleet Salvage Master is responsible for resolving the ship's issues. One of the salvagers will be arriving in Anvil at around 9:20 in the evening on Friday to meet with the Golden Fleet Salvage Master. There are reports that the Singing Riqueza, one of the many ships belonging to the Golden Fleet, is haunted. The Sorani salvagers are ill-equipped to deal with ghosts of long-dead sailors, and so have asked that the Golden Fleet Salvage Master, Caleb of the Cenotaph, organise a group to go down and deal with the ghosts. One of the salvagers will be visiting Anvil before the Sentinel Gate opens and hopes to meet with the Salvage Master. They have sent ahead a warning that this will involve being deep underwater, and warns that only Mero will be capable of surviving such a journey.